Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to Rostermania. One of the big questions that remains in this Rostermania period is which teams are going to change and which teams that most certainly will not. Los Angeles, Thieves, Atlanta, FaZe, they're going to stick with their roster. But Rambo could not guarantee that OpTic are going to stay together, albeit Dashy has now implied that that will indeed be the case next season. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Really helps the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Plenty to discuss today. Wanted to mention briefly Modern Warfare 2. Doug is kind of hoping very much indeed that the Ricochet anti-cheat actually works, because I think even in this game we've seen that the Ricochet thing doesn't really have that much effect at times on players that try and cheat in various ways, and they've had to use some sort of fated anti-cheat to get around it, so not ideal at all, especially for the online world that the Challengers ecosystem will probably still occupy going into next year. There's also to mention scraps, right, because many players, scraps, Waskin, and even other players that did pretty well maybe in the Modern Warfare season are looking to make a return. It's going to be difficult for these guys though, right, because they've done the Warzone thing for a couple of seasons, they've done okay on the Twitch and streaming and stuff like that, but now getting back into trying to compete in the Pro League, like, it's going to be difficult for them, right? They're going to have to go back to Challengers, prove their worth there again, and then potentially get picked up. With no expansion, it's really difficult to see these guys easily getting a spot. Could be an option for a team like London down the line, but they separated with those guys originally probably for a reason. If you guys remember the drama of a couple of years ago during the whole the London Royal Ravens 2020 season. So yeah, difficult scenes, but you know, maybe an option is there on the table if these guys prove their worth in Challengers, but not competing last season is certainly going to set them back a little bit compared to where others in a similar position might indeed be. Just wanted to mention this as well actually, because can you believe it? The Call of Duty League has actually made a trophy for the major winners. As Los Angeles Grillers point out right here, LAG and the Guard HQ just got an upgrade. This is the trophy that Minnesota created for the winners of that event. And in fairness, like, the team created trophies are much cooler and much better. But it's good that CDL are actually making an attempt, right? Because they've made this trophy right here, which as you can see is kind of similar to the World Championship trophy, but a slightly different design with the way the three pillars of the CDL, the professional pillar, the challengers pillar, which should really be invisible, and then of course the fan pillar, which is rather small as you might expect anyway. But yeah, the CDL have at least made some attempt. A fair play. It looks I don't know, I'm not exactly sure I love the thing, but still, the CDL have actually seemingly made championship trophies for all the events. In hindsight though, you don't get them at the time, which honestly is better, because it means that the teams get to create their own cool trophies, and then the CDL will kind of deliver you one a few months down the line. So maybe next season they'll actually have these prepared for the events, or they'll have a slightly different plan as well. Let's talk about the OpTic stuff. I thought this is kind of funny actually, about the unfortunate way that OpTic season turned out with the kind of the iLLeY thumb situation. He steps out when he comes back. The season was kind of chalked, Rambo reckon. They tried their best to recover, but it wasn't quite going to be enough. This just to mention actually, because we did look at this yesterday, but you guys might not have seen this in detail, and Scrim Intel kind of puts it here on Twitter again, but this was a detail that I actually didn't mention yesterday, that of course we talked about the fact that they were 6-0 versus Surge on Berlin, but they were 6-1 on Tuscan against New York Subliners, and they were 4-1 on Tuscan in Control against New York. So they were 10-2 combined on Tuscan against New York, and New York decided to square up on Tuscan upwin against OpTic and got completely destroyed. So I thought it was kind of a surprising one really, because like maybe New York just didn't think the Scrim results reflected the reality, but it is interesting to think about the Scrim results now. They kind of work for which teams decide to do what, because EasyMac actually was on stream last night talking about some of these Scrim statistics and saying that Boston Breach, everyone roasted Boston for playing so much Gavutu, because everyone was like, okay, well, Zin is the only one who wants to play Gavutu, and the SMGs always struggle on it. Apparently they were like the joint best Gavutu hardpoint team in the game alongside Los Angeles Thieves, that being the Boston Breach. Now at FaZe, on the other hand, were just built different in scrims. These, I think, even actually said, EasyMac, that these were better scrim stats than their Cold War season. So they did 226 sets of scrims FaZe this season. So over like the several months of competing, that's I guess that makes sense, right? 1 to 2 sets of scrims a day, similar on those lines for on average for many months of the season. So 226 sets of scrims. They won at 213 to 13 of those sets of scrims. I guess because there's only like 4 hardpoint maps and 3 like control maps that you can't really like draw a set of scrims, like someone wins, someone loses. But yeah, that's insane. And then map count was 1,280 to 387. So it's just an absolutely absurd map count, right? So in scrims, FaZe were absolutely godlike. Even like Rambo said that FaZe definitely had their number in scrims as well. And like, I mean, yeah, I'm sure looking at these numbers, they well know that they probably should have done better this season. Probably even more frustrating for the FaZe guys, right? That their numbers look like this in scrims, and then they got to a grand finals and couldn't deliver, right? So it's an interesting one. Like, these numbers for the last couple of seasons in scrims have been completely absurd for the FaZe guys, and that's why they're always ranked, or generally always ranked number 1 in the kind of rankings that the coaches do, because day in, day out, they see their team keep just getting bodied by FaZe and say, well, FaZe is the best team even if they can't win a grand finals. Maybe next season will be a different story for them. Let's talk about Dashy then, right? Because his KDs the last couple of years, Modern Warfare, he actually somehow had above a 1, but if you guys remember the Modern Warfare season, was pretty tragic with Dashy. He was meant to be joining, well, he wanted to join Chicago Huntsmen, arguably got duped by OpTic Gaming Los Angeles to keep him there. He then wanted to leave. He wasn't a great teammate. He wanted to run the AR, but then Slasher was there and he said, no, well, you're going to run the SMG, Dashy. He struggled with that. Then eventually he goes to the AR and it kind of works out a bit better, but not for long, and he gets benched from the team for attitude, stuff like that. But that was a tragic season for Dashy from start to finish. Finally in Cold War, gets on a team that he wants to be on in OpTic Chicago, has a 1.15. This year had a 1.20 overall, and of course was right up there with the MVP candidate. Right? And I think a lot of people said, and for good reason, that Dashy was far more impactful with his kills this year than he has been, let's say, last year in Cold War. Like, I think when Crimsix did his ratings of players, he had Dashy last season in Cold War as being like pretty much like 23rd best player in the league or something, pretty much way down there. This season he had him right up towards the kind of like A tier of players, saying that he has done a lot more for the team. Of course, Cellium ends up winning the MVP regardless. But I wanted to look at a couple of things, because we looked at this comment yesterday, right, where Rambo said that the OpTic roster, is it sticking together? And he said that the players are currently on vacation. I think Shotzi may be home with his family in LA or something. iLLeY and Dashy, I think, are back in Canada, and then Scump's in Hawaii, right, having his first vacation ever. But as he says, the players are currently away, and they are the ones who decide the roster, so he can't comment, right, on whether the team is staying together, which I thought was an interesting comment. He also went on to talk about iLLeY's injury, saying that iLLeY's hand is probably not 100% healed, and he will likely spend the offseason visiting doctors and getting it back to 100% again for the Modern Warfare 2 season. So that's a pretty big concern, right? Because the last couple of months, I thought iLLeY's played pretty well in the OpTic team, to be honest, since he made his return. But Rambo seems pretty convinced that his hand is not fully healed. There's still some pain there. Like, so, yeah, if iLLeY has to take some time off, and whether he can even return fully fresh next season, that's a question. So I think there's probably two big questions with this OpTic team. The first one being, is Scump going to retire? Which I don't really think Scump's going to want to go out the way he did this season. And the other question is iLLeY actually going to be able to play? And also, I suppose that the role question that we raised, does Scump want to run a flex, or, is he looking at attach? This type of stuff as well. And due to these questions, I think OpTic are slightly less likely than Los Angeles, Thieves, and FaZe to actually just run it back exactly as they currently have done this season. But Dashy seems to believe that probably will be the case. A couple of guys pointed this out to me from Dashy's Instagram, where he says all about the bounce back, see you guys next season, which of course doesn't really mean that much, but of course when he's saying see you guys, probably, playing the green wall, right, still going to be on OpTic. And of course the actual image that he does here is probably indicative of what he thinks is going to happen in the offseason. Of course, look, you never really know, things can change, but just the fact that he's tweeted out with all 4 guys probably implies that he certainly believes that the team will be returning as this team of 4, as it presently is. Otherwise, he might just have had a shot of himself or something with the crowd or whatever, but just the fact that he's, tweeting the full team of 4 is definitely a hint, I think, that Dashy at least understands, or like from what he believes right now, the team is going to stay together. That, of course, would be the expectation, but as I said, there's a couple of things that could change things up, but of course, it does seem rather unlikely. But the only teams that I would probably guarantee 100% are going to stay are FaZe and Los Angeles Thieves. OpTic may be marginally behind, but Dashy reckons they're probably going to stick based on the evidence right here. And as he says, really thought this would be the one. Appreciate the fans and the support. See you guys next year. # brick by brick. So, tough scenes really for Dashy again. I think arguably he's now the player in the CDL with the most pressure on him, right? Because of all the players that have failed or that have not won a world championship, not necessarily failed to win, but of all the players that haven't won a world championship ring, like Dashy's probably the most talented and also on the biggest team. I'd OpTic, like his teammates, iLLeY, Shotzi, and Scump, they've all won champs rings, whether online or on LAN a couple of years ago. And Dashy's kind of the player that hasn't achieved that yet. You've got the likes of Gunless, you've got Bance, you've got even Priester, players that have got very close but have never won one. They're of course maybe more accomplished players than Dashy, but Dashy's, he's got his 2 championship victories, he's got 0 world championship rings. The pressure's on him to some degree, and he probably thought this season, especially based on the way the season started, that he could be the one walking away with the ring at the end of the year, not Octane and Kenny, that also had immense pressure on them to start delivering on their potential as well and get over the line. That pressure is only going to mount month on month when, Dashy returns to the team this season, it seems. So it's definitely an interesting one. Intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Wanted to mention this as well, actually, because I tweeted this out yesterday just for a laugh, really, because I found this image here of Parasite back in the day when he was on FaZe Red. And of course, this Crowder meme here on the right-hand side being kind of the dad of the Tiny Terrors. But, I was kind of saying, okay, well, if Crowder does step down and maybe RJ, right, becomes the head coach of FaZe, then Parasite coming in as the assistant guy or even the head guy could be a good idea. We know that Parasite understands COD very well. Breaker Boy replied to this as kind of a joke, I think, and that Parasite doesn't really take it, well, particularly kindly. Been around COD Esports since whoever runs this account was probably in diapers. So, yeah, he's basically saying, yeah, I'm the man for the job. And, it'd be interesting to see see when if FaZe Parasite returns. I wasn't sure he was really going to reply to this one, but he did eventually, maybe indeed indicating his intent to potentially get this role, which might be available depending on how things go for the coming days. Wanted to mention this as well, actually, because it's really difficult to quantify like what OpTic's franchise statistics should be, because of course OpTic Texas kind of includes OpTic Chicago, but also Dallas Empire. So do you include Dallas Empire in the OpTic Texas stats? Like, it doesn't quite feel right to, but then again, you probably should, even though it's kind of tough to say, right? Because technically they are owned by Envy, which is the same organization. So a bit of a mess, to be honest. But these are the numbers, honestly, over the last 3 years, from Chicago Huntsman to OpTic Chicago, then to OpTic Texas. Like, I mean, this is pretty much standard for OpTic, really. A 3.77 average placing pretty much sums up their, well, history of the last few years. 22 tourneys, 63% series win-loss, 4 finals appearances, 3 tournament wins, and then, of course, well, of the 3 COD champs they've attended, not won any quite as yet. And then also wanted to look at Florida just by way of comparison. This is like a classic Florida stuff as well, really. An average placing of 6th, which is pretty much exactly what you might expect. They did, in fairness, win plenty of tournaments, 3 tournaments to be precise, back in the Modern Warfare days. They were all online. They won 1 with Prestinni, and then they won a couple after they made the changes in the latter half of the year. But a 48.6% series win-loss is pretty much what you might expect from Florida. Hopefully this season they can finally break the stigma that they've had the last couple of years of just being a team that puts a squad together, that gets some crazy upset results and somehow does well enough, but then when push comes to shove, they always fall short and realistically can never beat anyone on a consistent basis. Hopefully they, you know, I don't know, maybe Skies will stay, maybe Awakening will stay. Not sure what the plan is there. I highly doubt both of them are going to stay. Those guys are both free agents and can leave if they want to, and will probably have better offers out there. So hopefully Mutineers that can actually build a good squad this season that's fun to watch. And maybe it's time for the Dave Paddy return. I just wanted to mention this as well because I thought this was super impressive. We did look at these numbers the other day, but just like no team was able to do this the entire season long, to be honest, where their KDs were so similar across the board. And Thieves did it back to back at the World Championship and at Major 4 as well. Drazah was a 1.05 overall, like Kenny has a 1.10 overall, Octane has a 1.12, I think we'll see in a second, Envoy has a 1.05, and yeah, 1.12 for Octane, right? So those are just immense numbers, to be honest, and the entire team's been able to put together, getting everyone involved. You can see the streaks of everyone, like Drazah had a 6 streak, everyone else had more than that, Envoy had that crazy 12 streak he had as well. So yeah, just shows the level of COD that Thieves, I think, were playing at the World Championship compared to everyone else. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit on the like button. Told the YouTube gods, it's a good video, and I was like, you should see it as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you guys, as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.
You said that.
What, when I said that? Everyone's saying that Zinny Cat has crumbled because you don't want to watch Dark Knight with me.
Oh, man. Are they calling for a roster change?
You guys... Are you looking for a roster change?
No.
Okay.
Wait, you guys aren't holding trials?
Yeah. That's good. That's good stuff.
I'm running down mid in my MP40
That's
if
good
anyone wants
stuff.
to follow me up.
I'm sniping train side.
Zach,
Oh,
Zach,
that was
Zach,
funny.
Zach, that was good stuff, dude.
That was so
Yeah,
good.
Zach, that was good stuff, man.
I haven't told any jokes in the last few days.